The problem first came to light at Newcastle's Club Phoenix. Officials found that certain poker machines were being manipulated and tricked into paying jackpots.
We're able to cross-match information on the Tweed, more latterly Nelson Bay, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, that indicates that there are people that have targeted a particular brand of machine where there is an anomaly.
Thieves use a piece of wire to dislodge the machine's cash hopper, then press the collect button for the coins to spill out. The payoff is small, but there are hundreds of such machines throughout the state. Thieves cleared $1,300 from a single machine in just one afternoon at a North Coast club.
It's edging up towards the tens of thousands now on what we know, and we've only got 5 locations for sure, ranging in figures approaching about $2,000.
During this busy time of year, it can be days before clubs tally their poker machine takings, by which time the thieves are long gone. Working from videotape surveillance footage, police are following strong leads on the identity of the offenders.
Whoever's doing it really knows what they're about. They're targeting not only a particular brand of machine, they're targeting high-density holiday areas where it would likely not to be picked up quite as quickly.
According to the Japanese press, the giant Nisho Iwai Corporation will develop a chain of coal mines in New South Wales with an estimated output of 10 million tonnes a year. Nisho Iwai, along with South Korea's Pohan Iron and Steel Company, has joined with Coal Operations Australia Limited to explore an estimated 1.6 billion tonne coal reserve under the Tuggerah Lakes near Wyong. $18 million will be spent on feasibility and environmental impact statements on the site, with work hoped to begin early next century. The venture would inject millions of dollars into the local economy. The man, who was holidaying in the area, picked up the octopus out of curiosity while fishing in a small boat off Nelson Bay. The fisherman felt a small bite on his hand, a numbness spreading up his arm and a tingling sensation around his lips. He was treated at the Nelson Bay Polyclinic, then transferred to Newcastle's Mater Hospital. Doctors confirmed the man had suffered a mild bite from a blue-ringed octopus. There is no anti-venom for the poison, which normally proves fatal by paralysing the victim's respiratory system. If bitten, ambulance officers advise applying pressure to the bite area and then to seek immediate hospital attention. However, doctors warn the best advice is to simply avoid contact with the blue-ringed octopus in the first place.
For most children, this was the question they wanted answered this morning. And Santa didn't disappoint. But not everyone was entertained at home. The Hunter Mission hosted a lunch at Newcastle Civic Park, attended by some homeless, some people who live on their own, and others who just wanted to join in. But it was business as usual for many emergency services personnel, grabbing a bite when they could. Last night, things weren't so leisurely for ambulance officers, delivering premature twins at Raymond Terrace in the Hunter Valley. Ken Powter and Jim Miles' ambulance became a delivery ward, with both mum and the twins all doing fine. One of the most special gifts received today went to Gail Dixon and her husband Rodney. Gail giving birth to baby daughter Angela, her first Christmas baby in the Hunter.
North Coast tourism is alive and well, judging by the thousands of vehicles trekking up the highway today. With so many on the road, it doesn't need much to trigger a bank up of traffic. The F3 first jammed just north of Sydney this morning after a 7-car pile-up. And the story was repeated further north near the Toronto turnoff when a caravan jackknifed into the guardrail. Again, stalled traffic banked up for about 5 kilometres until police could get both lanes rolling again. Not that there was much point in hurrying. At Raymond Terrace, there was the usual crawl through the township, repeated about 15 kilometres up the road at Karua. A much talked about bypass of Raymond Terrace is promised for 1997, but there's no plan yet to fix Karua. Further north at Taree, the inadequacy of the highway had tempers, if not radiators, boiling again, as Simon Cobb reports.
Motorists were kept to a snail's pace for up to an hour before making their way into town. Along with the rain, it was a frustrating start for many to their holidays.
It's probably about twice as bad as it was last year.
Yeah, the two lanes go into one lane and you just transfer the bottleneck from one area to another.
The Roads and Traffic Authority said there was an unusually high number of cars on the highway. Relief is around the corner in the form of the Taree bypass, but it won't be completed until late 1998. Simon Cobb, NBN News.
18-year-old breaker Clayton Zane was fine-tuning his radar today, his left and right foot on target. It was a frustrating time for him against Brisbane 2 nights ago, the striker going oh so close to scoring the winning goal.
I had a few digs, unfortunately I should say, one hit the crossbar and that could have been the difference.
Sydney United tomorrow night will be another tough battle. In their last clash, the Breakers won 2-1. And the pressure is on for Newcastle to secure another victory, especially with their home turf advantage.
We've got to start getting some wins. We've been unlucky on a few occasions, but also with injuries, things just haven't been falling our way.
For youngsters like Clayton Zone, it's a big test. Sydney United is a quality side with 5 Olympic squad members. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
This dog, abandoned after its owners moved out of a house at Tingara Heights, may appear playful, but according to 10-year-old Simon Wood, he isn't always that harmless.
I was walking down from my mate's place up there, and then I bent over to pick something off the grass, and the dog came running out and bit me on the lip.
Simon lives next door to the house in which the dog was left. He says the attack occurred in the afternoon of New Year's Eve. Since then, his father, Shane, has been attempting to have the dog removed and stop it simply wandering the neighbourhood.
The main concern is just to get the dog out of the area, get it taken away, because there's no one here looking after it and it's just roaming the streets of the night. And the kids, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the kids are safe over here.
Confusion has surrounded exactly who is responsible for removing the dog. The RSPCA has been feeding the animal, but told Shane it was up to the police to have the animal removed. When contacted this morning, the police said it was the responsibility of Lake Macquarie Council. Shortly after our inquiries, the police, RSPCA and council all responded to the complaint. The dog was eventually captured at the property and is now in the care of the RSPCA. Emma Siossian, NBN News. Beekeeper Warren Milligan owns a small farm at Largs, northwest of Newcastle. A member of the Beekeepers Association, he says the extended period of cooler spring-like weather throughout December, combined with the more recent humid conditions, has seen the bees continue to swarm in search of new territory.
Usually the swarming's over by the middle of November, but because of the no hot weather and these humid type conditions and the clovers and ground floras lasted just so much longer, the bees have continued to think that it's still spring.
But it's not all bad news. The swarming is a sign the bees are ready to increase their honey production, and Warren says beekeepers along the coast have experienced a strong season.
It is a big problem, but it's not a problem we worry about a lot. We rather like to have it because we know our bees are in good order and everything's going well.
Steps to help ensure the bees don't swarm include adding an extra frame of honey to the box and introducing a new queen bee to the hive. Warren says anyone noticing a swarm of bees should avoid disturbing them. Emma Siossian, NBN News.
Police were called to a house on Bormans Road at Limpenwood, west of Murwillumbah, at around 9 o'clock last night. When they arrived, they found the house well alight and a 4-year-old girl outside. Police allege she had stab wounds to her chest and arms. The house was completely destroyed by the fire and the girl was taken to the Murwillumbah Hospital for treatment and was later released. Police, accompanied by the dog squad, began looking for the offender. A short time later, a 24-year-old man was found after local residents joined in the bushland search. The man was taken to the Murwillumbah police station and charged with a string of offences, including attempted murder, assault, setting a house on fire, self-administering an illegal drug and break and enter from a previous incident. Earl Justin Kingy appeared before the clerk of the Murwillumbah local court late this afternoon. Bail was refused and the case adjourned to the Tweed Heads local court tomorrow. Anne Lewis, NBN News.
"15-year-old Luke Bartlett and 17-year-old Gary Hubbard from Nelson Bay are looking forward to the challenge, surfing against the top junior surfers around the world in the Pro Junior at Newcastle Surfest.
You can pick up bigger sponsors and get the money, do a lot of contests around Australia. It's going to be hard, but just got to have a go.
The boys were today going through their paces in the surf where they'll be before the spotlight, Newcastle Beach. Surfest starts in 2.5 months. While Luke and Gary have proven themselves in local comps, the national and international interest in Surfest could make them a career in their favourite sport.
Newcastle University has long been involved in the field of space study. Today, Senior Physics Professor Dr Fred Mink with postgraduate student Ian Wright prepared to embark on a new project, studying solar wind particles at the South Pole. Such particles react with substances in the upper atmosphere which help produce the spectacular phenomena of the aurora, often seen in the dark polar skies. Ian Wright is travelling to the Antarctica for a month-long stay. There he'll use a sophisticated new camera to capture the sky's activities, spanning from horizon to horizon.
The camera itself has a standard fisheye lens, which gets the image of the entire sky. This is separated into a blue wavelength and a red wavelength, which are separate particle events cause different colours.
The camera will look through a special dome set up at the New Zealand-run Scott Base.
Scott Base is particularly well located because it's underneath what is called the cusp in the Earth's magnetic field during the Antarctic winter when it's completely dark at midday.
The equipment is being sent out of Newcastle tomorrow morning while Ian departs on the weekend. Emma Ossian, NBN News. The Westpac rescue helicopter first began operating in 1975, mainly performing surf life-saving duties. Since then, the helicopter has become a valuable tool in assisting victims at major emergencies, progressing from the humble Bell 47 through to the more powerful and sophisticated Bell 412 used today. The service is now on the brink of performing its 3,000th mission with paramedics.
All jobs are very important, but this is certainly a milestone for the service.
Preparations were underway at the base today, paramedics checking the gear to ensure everything is in place. The summer holiday period is meanwhile a traditionally busy time for the service.
Over the Christmas period, the service has been quite busy. In fact, both aircraft have been busy. We have set the system up so we can have 2 aircraft for the traditional busy period, yeah.
Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Graham Chook Fowler was one of the first police officers captured on secret video allegedly accepting bribes. The detective inspector was suspended from his job and authorities believe he now manages Newcastle's Shortland Hotel. However, when NBN approached hotel staff 2 weeks ago, they denied even knowing Mr Fowler.
You sure Graham's not in there?
No, he's not in here.
You put on Has he been here today?
No.
Yesterday?
I haven't.
Listen,
get him.
Well, why, when I asked you, did you say that he was... Get him. You'd go and get him for me.
Graham Fowler's exact involvement in the hotel is being investigated by the Liquor Enforcement Agency and a special government task force, which has now handed over all information to the Royal Commission.
Whether or not the person has done anything wrong, that is not for me to judge. It will be something that the Royal Commission can take into account when my officers make their final findings, but the preliminaries have already been sent to the Commission.
According to the Minister responsible, Richard Face, the Department of Gaming and Racing has ordered the hotel licensee, David Briggs, to provide details of Graham Fowler's role in the Shortland Hotel. Sources say the building is owned by a company called Padalong, the main shareholder, a fishing mate of Graham Fowler's, while the licensee, David Briggs, is also believed to be Graham Fowler's close friend. Under a new liquor enforcement bill to go to Parliament early this year, all business associates of the licensee would have to be declared. Mr Face says it's a direct result of the Royal Commission and the inadequacies in the law that it's exposed.
Well, at present, the person who is the licensee is the person who passes the fit and proper test. But it doesn't say anything about those associated with the licensee or those that actually physically own the business or own the building. And of course that's what my task force found when it did the audit of King.
The project involves assembling and maintaining 35 new jet fighter training aircraft for the Royal Australian Air Force. Newcastle Airport is up against several Victorian sites competing for the job, while the 3 consortia shortlisted for the contract are led by McDonnell Douglas, British Aerospace and Air Mackie. Newcastle's main disadvantage has been the lack of sufficient infrastructure, but the $1.5 million today granted by the government, combined with an additional $1.5 million from Newcastle and Port Stephens councils, has put the area in a prime position.
We're taking no risks. There have been a lot of things happen in my time in Parliament where we've missed out because we simply didn't foresee down the track something that could be used as an excuse. We're not going to let that happen.
The money will go towards establishing a new hangar and taxiway. If Newcastle wins the contract, it will provide the Hunter region with more than 200 jobs.
It has a tremendous onflow of jobs, not only immediately but in the long term, because when these contracts are undertaken they have a maintenance component in it.
Newcastle Airport is delighted with the extra funding, saying it's also in an excellent geographic position, being right near the RAAF base, and the government is confident of a good showing.
We're in with a big chance.
The Carr government passed special legislation last month to allow RZM the necessary wildlife licence to extend its sand mining operations at Tomago. But conservationists again frustrated the company's land clearing plans this morning, setting up a vigil in trees on the site and chaining themselves to bulldozers.
This is the length we've been drawn to take because of the government's lack to protect our native fauna and our water.
We're very, very upset with Bob Carr and the ALP. We think they've betrayed their green credentials.
The conservationists say the land clearing will destroy a vital koala habitat and that continued sand mining will degrade the Tomago aquifer, which helps supply water to Newcastle. For its part, the RZM company says it has government, court and National Parks and Wildlife Service backing to get on with the job here. It says the protesters have taken the law into their own hands. Police finally made their move around 1 p.m, the protesters choosing to stand their ground. It was still no easy task for police, who had to call in a company mechanic to partially dismantle the bulldozers so the chained demonstrators could be led away. Special police climbers were due to arrive late this afternoon to remove other protesters from the treetops. By that stage, though, company workers had already begun on the site clearing work. The conservationists still hope to stop RZM with a new court challenge due to start in March. Ian Cameron, NBN News. Resource analysts have claimed Australia's open-cut coal mines are on their last legs, some suggesting open-cut output will begin to decline within the decade. With 5 new open-cut mines being developed in the Hunter Valley, the New South Wales Minerals Council disagrees.
Each of those mines have got a life of sort of 25, 30, 50 years plus. Some of the mines that are operating now have got a life of in excess of 100 years, so it'll be a long time yet before we actually see the open-cut style of mining phased out of the Hunter Valley.
Open cut mines currently account for 70% of Australian coal production. The Minerals Council accepts that underground mining will claim an increasing share of production as surface reserves are exhausted. It says the source of supply isn't as important as the Australian industry's ability to remain cost efficient to compete in the world market.
Things that are I guess, equally or perhaps even more significant are things like greenhouse and what effect that might have politically and technically on the coal industry, and just general environmental issues, cumulative effects of mining in the Hunter Valley and that sort of thing, that may well see constraints put on mining much more so than the availability of coal reserves.
Lowe had been rested on the bench during the Breakers' last two matches, but it's thought he will return to play the Melbourne Knights in what will be a tough away fixture.
Lowe's now would come in handy, so I'm considering bringing him back in, but how I'd do it yet remains to be seen. I wouldn't bring him in up front. If he comes back in, it'll be into a midfield role.
That's likely to be the only change against a Knights team which has struggled for form this season. They had a last-minute win courtesy of John Markowski against Newcastle in round 6. The big striker getting plenty of attention at Breakers Stadium.
And I gave him a bit of stick before the game, just winding him up, and he gave me a bit of stick back. That's what it's all about, mate, a bit of friendly sledging. But no, I can't see any problems between us and him. I mean, there was a talk at the start of the season that, a couple of the blokes actually wanted to get him up here. But, we couldn't afford the excess baggage.
The Breakers also start the Johnny Walker Cup next week with several players expected to be rested.
The large parcel of land between Tanilba Bay, Malabula and the sea is commonly referred to as the Tillagary habitat. Up until the mid-1970s, it was the site of a major sand mining operation. Aside from a small seaward strip, the land is primarily state-owned and controlled. But a new community group, the Tillagary Habitat Centre, has been formed to take over care and control of the site. It's now planning to restore and rehabilitate the area.
The state of the part that was mined is very poor indeed. It's just beginning to regenerate, but the soil profile is completely ruined when it's mined.
The group hopes to eventually establish an eco-tourist centre in the area, building a large boardwalk and offering guided tours of the peninsula.
To create jobs, enhance the economy and keep things going, not just be green, but actually ecologically sustainable development.
Once the planning is complete, the group hopes to begin work within the next 2 years. Emma Siossian, NBN News. Despite an abundance of natural sea life, each year Australia imports 45,000 tonnes of frozen and fresh fish worth more than $150 million. In addition, most Australian farmed fish are reliant on overseas feed, which is steadily increasing in price. New South Wales Fisheries is now attempting to remedy that problem, starting by improving the local fish food market.
Well, basically what we're trying to do is develop cheaper, better diets for this species, silver perch, and for those diets to be based on Australian-produced agricultural products rather than imported and expensive fish meals.
Port Stephens Fisheries is conducting a series of experiments, testing a range of Australian products from grains and legumes through to meats to develop a high-standard Australian fish food. The tests are being conducted on silver perch, held in a variety of different tanks.
We look at the digestibility of those, so we analyse what's left in the faeces after the fish have eaten diets composed of those ingredients. And then we run experiments where we combine different amounts of those ingredients in different ways and formulate diets that sort of meet the nutritional requirements of the fish.
In the long term, it's hoped to increase the number of fish farmed in Australia, significantly reducing import costs. Emma Siossian, NBN News.
As General Manager of the Newcastle YMCA, Waite was appropriately enjoying this week's camp on Lake Macquarie named the Eureka Stockade. The former Knights mentor struck gold himself late this afternoon when he was appointed the Saints coach for the next 2 years. The announcement ended a frustrating stint on the sideline for Waite, who left Newcastle in controversial circumstances in 1994. He then took up a development role in South Australia, but maintains he left Newcastle in a healthy position.
What were your thoughts sitting back down there in Adelaide and seeing the Knights go as well as they did?
I was proud. I mean, I was proud of the players. I mean, I never coached for a board or anyone else. I coached for the players. My very simple philosophy that I hope that they are better players at the end of the season than they were at the beginning of the season.
Waite has now inherited one of rugby league's most difficult jobs. The ARL Saints have been involved in court action against several top players who intend joining Super League clubs and lost coach Rod Reddy only after days on the job.
St George is no different to any other club. Each one has their own unique problems, and that happens every day and every week in professional sport. So I think the experience that I've had in this town would put me in pretty good stead for any problems.
But there were mixed emotions for Waite today. He's become a widely respected manager of the YMCA and is in the middle of a hectic holiday program which includes another camp on January the 18th and a Wickets and Wine fundraising night on February the 17th.
Driving a taxi is more than just taking passengers from point to point. It's become an obstacle course of threats, assaults and robberies. It's hoped by reducing the amount of cash in cabs that some of those hurdles will be removed to give drivers a clear run.
It won't go all the way because there'll always be somebody that'll want some money, but basically hopefully in the future it will amount to there'll be less cash carried by the driver through people using the EFTPOS.
The machines are already being installed in some taxis in Newcastle, with Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and the Gold Coast also trialling EFTPOS.
There'll be 10 cars initially and they'll be identifiable by the decals on the rear doors and the rear mudguards, and it will be expanded provided the trial is successful after 6 to 9 months.
If all cabs eventually come online, hailing a cab will have never been easier. Passengers will only need their plastic cards to pay for the fare, although it will cost more than cash.
There will be the normal cab charge administration fee of 10%, but that's a standard charge across Australia for our cab charge users at the moment.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.